Have you ever heard of the term friends with benefits? Well, some of us have, some of us haven't, and the Court of Appeal has. And you're going to hear a decision brought to us by Stephanie and Brooke about what that meant in a legal term and whether or not there were grounds for a restraining order. Stand by. Stephanie and Brooke, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I think I might change after I hear the discussion about today's topic. Out of all the topics in the world, the Orange County case involving friends with benefits has surfaced, and I think we need to talk about that because we wouldn't be family law attorneys unless we got deep into the facts and talk about this here. So, first of all, before we even get into the decision, there may be some people out there that don't know what friends with benefits means. I mean, I didn't know what it meant until probably 10 years ago or something. So.
Well, I think this case shows not a lot of us know what friends with benefits are. So I think it's hard to describe. Maybe tell me if I'm wrong.
I'm not going to try. You try.
I think it is where two people are engaging in a sexual relationship without the expectation of a long-term relationship or anything outside of that sexual part of the relationship.
So it means pretty much that it's an open relationship too. I mean, I think it means that you could date whoever you want, but we're friends only, and we have sex.
Well, I think it's kind of different strokes for different folks.
Well, I think it only really works when both individuals have that understanding, right? Like, because sometimes if one person's in love or committed and not dating anyone else, then that's where it gets really complicated. You know,
as we talk about this great topic here, maybe later on we could talk about some of the interesting cases that we've received that have come through the door where people have quote unquote open relationships. And what you just said makes sense where one person might think it means one thing or the other. So anyways, let's talk about this case first. What's the name of the case?
It's MAVBF.
Okay. And I've already divulged that it comes from Orange County, but you would think that's a conservative county, right?
Yeah.
Well, we saw how this was decided. So I think it actually is in line.
That is true. Okay. Well, okay. I think that in Orange County, I thought in Orange County what they would say is be more protective. So I don't want to give away the story here, but you're seeing it in a different light, which is interesting. So tell us about the setup of the case, between these two people.
Okay, sure. So this is a pretty simple case. Well, no, I don't know why I said that. Okay, so MA and BF. So MA is the female, BF is the male.
Boyfriend.
Well, I was going to just call her GF for, convenience. And I was like, well, no, that's the whole issue of this case. Okay, so they have some sort of relationship. The crux of this case is what kind it is, but there is some sort of relationship. They met in the spring of 2015, and between October 2015 and July 24th, 2017, they saw each other 7 times. They engaged in sexual activity on 5 of those occasions, and one of those occasions was just kissing. They went many months without seeing each other, including one period for 11 months. MA, the wife, MA, the girl, testified that they were in constant communication with each other during those periods of time where they were not physically
so fast.
seen.
I mean, if this was a movie, you'd be getting to the end right away, man.
Well, I think that the discussion is so much more interesting than the facts.
Well, come on. What about this? They meet
at a gym.
They meet at a gym.
So he's over there doing his curls, and she's over there doing her exercise.
But actually, that's not even the first time they met. So that's another layer. They met in the spring. Then in October, they meet at this gym, and they have such a lovely time seeing each other that they start kissing then.
Okay.
And then the next time they see each other, after that gym event, they saw each other more frequently for a couple of months. Then there was a bit of a duration of not seeing each other, but apparently they're talking.
Look, this story has the plot. It's got the details of a great hot, one of these novels, right? I mean, they're meeting at places, it doesn't matter where and stuff like that. And there's multiple occasions where they're having sexual encounters.
And they're communicating almost every day, Snapchat, text messages, over a period.
Apparently.
Well, according to testimony and evidence that was admitted.
Well, see, and that's why I want to get to this point. I think this is so much more interesting. Okay. I will give you the Hollywood version.
That's what our audience wants.
Okay.
Go, Ryan Gosling, let's go.
I'm gonna have to get out my big notes.
Oh gosh, we have notes. Oh gosh, we have notes.
Okay, so like I said, there were 7 times they met with each other in this October 2015 through July 2017.
Well, how long is that? How long is that? So over a period of 6 to 7 weeks, they see each other about 3 times.
Okay.
Seems pretty okay,
Standard
average,
for
right?
a new relationship. If it
you're
was
busy,
a relationship.
yeah.
Okay.
Over the course of 19 months, they saw each other 8 times.
Okay. Now, is that really that unusual? I mean, in this day where you have long distance relationships or
Yeah.
people that are really busy and stuff, okay. Again, we're not calling it a relationship
Not a
because the court,
relationship.
we're going to find out differed with that. But so they have these multiple encounters, right?
Yes.
And they're talking to each other and they're texting each other. Are they sending pictures with each other to each other? Stuff. I think there's some of that stuff.
Probably
I
on
think there was at
Snapchat.
least once,
Okay.
Yes.
You know, the kind that delete.
Right, right.
She meets his mom.
That was, to me, it was an interesting thing, right?
Mhm.
Okay, and why would that happen?
So I think he was in some boxing match and he must have invited her. She shows up with her mom and his mom's there to support him. They meet each other and they take a photo together.
Okay.
To me, that's, hey, meet my maybe girlfriend.
Okay, have you ever been in a relationship where you have introduced the boyfriend to your parents?
Yeah, of course.
That's usually a sign of what?
It's getting serious.
Okay.
It's moving forward.
Right. Now, if it wasn't serious, would you ever bring somebody around?
No.
Okay.
So
Absolutely
I would
not.
actually push back on this.
Okay.
And so she didn't testify that she was invited. She obtained a media pass to go. They did not kiss at the match. They did not hang out after the match. There was really no interaction at the match except for meeting the mom and taking this one picture. But if you're going as a fan,
So she's stalking him?
no,
a minute,
I
a
just
fan?
don't think this is as damning as it is. And I guess spoiler alert, I come out on the side that she definitely should have gotten the restraining order.
Okay.
I just don't think this is
So,
as strong.
so you think they were in a dating relationship?
Counsel, it goes to the weight of the evidence, not the admissibility. Okay.
I think they were, see, this is why it's hard to talk about because I'm going to give away the ending. I think they were in a dating relationship at one point.
Okay. Why don't you, let's fast forward now because we are getting into the,
Okay, so fast forward that July 24th, 2017 date that I keep saying. They meet up. They had not seen each other, I think, for a couple of weeks, if not a couple of months.
And this is where the story gets kind of weird.
Right. So they have.
If it hasn't been weird already.
Yeah.
They send some messages. It becomes clear that they are meeting up to have some sort of sexual relation.
Is this before or after he moved away?
This is the last time they met, so I think it's after he moved away.
Okay, so at some point he moves.
And they don't see each other for. Is that when they had the 11 month?
I think so.
So anyway, on this July date, 2017, they haven't seen each other for a while, but they have talked. It is clear they're meeting up to have some sort of sexual relation. They are in his car driving to her mom's house, and he says something like, "Do you like when I pull your hair?" Or they had been kissing at red lights. He says, "Do you like when I pull your hair?" Before she can answer, he pulls her hair, yanks her back and forth, apparently. I mean, it seems like it was pretty violent.
Yeah. She heard some cracking of
She heard some-
bones.
And then they just sort of move along. They get to the mom's house, and I didn't write this part down, but I know it's interesting, so I should say what happens. They get to the mom's house. They go to the mother's apartment, but they did not want to have sex there. They kissed in a stairwell, then walk toward the pool. They go to the men's locker room where they have sex in one of the shower stalls. It was interrupted. It's just a very interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah.
So her neck is hurt, supposedly.
Yeah.
And she's still proceeding on with this hot
Physical activities.
encounter.
Yes.
Yeah. So, just out of curiosity, where did he move to? Does it say? Or
It
how far
says-
away?
It says a different city, but the same county.
Is that still in Orange?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So
So that was the last encounter that they have. Supposedly they're driving along the car, and he goes, "Hey, do you like your hair pulled?" And she doesn't. And then he starts yanking her hair. Her neck hurts as a result of that. Then they proceed to someplace, and they end up in a men's locker room, and they have one more hot sexual encounter,
Yes.
right? And then what happens?
So that's their last time physically interacting, but they
Okay.
are texting. She wakes up the next morning not feeling well. She goes to the doctor. They are texting about it. He doesn't deny that anything happened. He says, I'm sorry. I think he does say, I'm sorry.
Yeah, like the night of, she's texting him, I didn't like that hurt, don't do that again. And he's kind of dismissive about it. Oh, I'm really tired, I'm gonna go to bed. The next day she goes to get, medical treatment where they diagnose her with a concussion and some sort of cervical issue.
Concussion, physical whiplash similar to a car accident. And this is that word you were trying to say, cervicalgia, and muscle strain.
Injury of the cervical. And she tells him, hey, I'm here at the hospital. I'm getting treatment. I'm in a lot of pain. And he offers to pay for her co-pays and, let me know if you need anything. I don't know if he says exactly I'm sorry, but he's kind of more empathetic.
The circumstantial evidence would show that it happened.
It happened.
If there was an issue as to whether or not he caused injury to her, it would be proven.
And I don't think at every point he denies it.
That doesn't seem to come up.
Okay.
The bigger issue is this idea they had a dating relationship. So they do go to court. The BF does not testify, but there, like I said, wasn't a dispute really as to whether or not the abuse occurred. The dispute was whether they were in a dating relationship.
Okay, let's stop right there. So the boyfriend's attorney says, Judge, we're not going to be putting on any evidence denying that this happened or anything like that. Judge, we want you to dismiss this case because in the family code, there's a definition of people that can get restraining orders against each other for domestic violence, as opposed to civil harassment.
Right.
Right. And what are those definitions that?
So the qualifying relationships are going to be like a cohabitant, a prior cohabitant, a spouse, a prior spouse, a co-parent, someone you're currently in a dating relationship, or someone you previously dated. Otherwise, it's not going to qualify for domestic violence restraining order. It's going to be, like you said, a civil harassment restraining order, such as a neighbor complaining against a neighbor.
Okay. So he says, Judge, I'm going to contest whether this was a valid relationship or not. Mm-hmm. Now, that took a lot of guts from that attorney.
Yeah.
I want to meet that
it's
attorney.
Kind of creative.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's because the burden is on her, on, MA.
And they're in Orange County, and they're in front of an Orange County judge, and there must be a feel for this judge or something to make that type of an argument.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
But even though BF didn't testify, MA did, and she was cross-examined. And during cross, she admitted that they had, during those whole almost 2 years, 19 months or whatever it was, she admitted that they had never went on a social outing together. He never bought her a gift, never had lunch or dinner together, never went to her birthday party or took her out for her birthday. They didn't do any holiday meals together.
They never went to a Lakers game for some reason.
Specific.
That's in there.
No Lakers game, no movies, no clubs. He never cooked for her. They never had Valentine's together. And he never joined her.
Sounds like it was a lengthy hearing to get
I
all this out.
know.
But go ahead.
One by one. I think that was it.
So in cross-examination, ma'am, he never took you to a Lakers game, right? Okay, go ahead.
Someone had to say, Judge. And then her therapist also testified, and he discussed the emotional harm she suffered. He wrote a letter on her behalf, potentially, hurting her case. He said he understood them to be friends where there may have been physical contact. As part of that letter he wrote, he testified that when he first wrote it, he said friend, and then was asked to rewrite it to say they had been dating or something like that, changed the language.
Yeah, he actually testified that during their sessions, she made it very clear, that's not my boyfriend, we're not dating, it's a friends with benefits, she called it.
She called it that.
She called it that. But when it came time to writing a letter for the court to review her request, she asked him to define it as a dating relationship because she probably knew
and
that.
What did he say?
He did rewrite it to that term because he thought that was going to be an accurate reflection of what actually occurred. But it seems like he just did it to satisfy her request. Yeah.
Okay.
So ultimately, the trial court that MA didn't meet her burden to prove that their relationship was a dating relationship, and therefore no restraining order for her. So I want to go over quickly a little bit of the law that we're talking about. Steph touched on it, but to establish domestic violence, she had to prove the infliction of injury upon herself resulting from abuse as defined in subsection. This is not important. I don't know. Is this helpful to go through?
No.
So basically, she had to show that there was an injury and that the abuse was committed by the defendant who was having a relationship with the plaintiff as defined in subdivision that Steph just talked about. So like we said, former spouse, dating, having dated. And then the Penal Code section doesn't define dating, but the Domestic Violence Prevention Act does. And under DVPA, a dating relationship consists of frequent, intimate associations, primarily characterized by the expectation of affection or sexual involvement independent of financial considerations. And all the parties were in agreement that that was the definition governing the analysis.
Okay, so regardless of what the trial court found in the appellate court, let's look at this. Read that slowly again.
Slowly.
Frequent, intimate associations,
Got that?
So frequent,
Okay.
intimate.
primarily characterized by the expectation of affection or sexual involvement,
Bingo. Okay, got 2. 2 out of 2.
independent of financial considerations.
I didn't hear anything about
Nothing
financial.
yeah.
It wasn't prostitution or anything like that, right?
Completely agree.
That sounds like a dating relationship to me.
Yeah. Okay.
I agree.
Okay. So how did the Court of Appeal feel that the trial court got this right?
Well, so first, before we get into that, I do
Okay.
think that an important part of this, and I actually think this is what the case comes down to, is the review that the Court of Appeals used. And so the standard of review that you can use is like either substantial evidence standard or de novo review. When it's a de novo review, it's almost as if it's a new trial. The court doesn't have to be deferential to the trial court. It's, like I said, a new case almost de novo. The substantial evidence standard gives a lot more discretion to the trial court. And so in this case, the Court of Appeals found that the ultimate determination is whether a reasonable trier of fact could have found the existence of a dating relationship based on the whole record. And they have to resolve all factual conflicts and questions of credibility in favor of the prevailing party and indulge all reasonable inferences to support the trial court's order. Essentially, unless you look at what was decided and no reasonable person could have found that, you have to defer to what the trial court found. And that is the standard that was used in this case, and I think that is exactly why they are right in what they did, even though I do think when we look at the law, this was a dating relationship or had been.
Yeah, I disagree with the Court of Appeal on this.
Really?
I mean, yeah, I really do. They're saying, in essence, is that hey, the trial court gets to decide this, and we don't see abuse of discretion, or we're not going to try to retry these facts. And a reasonable conclusion based on these facts is that there was no quote-unquote dating relationship. Well, we just read the code. And the code doesn't say that they have to go to movies, and
Right.
they don't have to, what else? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I think the other part that she messed up on, and I wanted to get your opinion on this, is I think it is very reasonable to see where they were in their relationship at that time, relationship broadly. But I think, and the trial court admitted that there was that 3-month period where it seems like, yeah, they could have had a dating relationship. The code allows for that to be a reason for the Domestic Violence Prevention Act to apply.
So are you asking why didn't she argue we were formally dating?
What I'm asking is that the trial court says because she doesn't make that argument, she lost it. And that's my understanding of what happens if you don't raise the issue, you don't get relief based on it.
Yeah, I'm confused. I think at one point they discussed that during like a 3-month period, they were more frequently seeing each other and texting. So at that point, maybe they were dating. Thereafter, it was more infrequent and, not intimate. So they weren't dating during that
Still
period.
doesn't convince me. I mean, you and I have gotten lots of restraining orders where the relationship was over with.
Right.
It was a prior dating relationship. It doesn't matter.
No, but that's what you were arguing. They made a point to specifically point out that MA didn't make that argument on appeal. At the Court of Appeals, she was arguing they were currently in a dating relationship. And so the Court of Appeals says because she didn't make the argument that they were previously dating, she can't get relief under that.
Okay, well, I mean, what does dating mean? I mean, come on. Again, it's a stupid thing to me when people start getting intimate like that. That's a relationship,
Right?
And it's a different type of relationship than perfect strangers.
Well,
right?
so you would broaden it to any person that there have been sexual contact would fall under the
Consensual sexual contact.
Yeah.
I think the Court of Appeal should go. Yeah, that counts. What we're trying to do is protect people
Right.
from abuse,
Right.
right? And when you have frequent and continuing sexual encounters with somebody, there's the potential for something to happen like that.
Or
that's a relationship.
Yeah, or almost, daily communications, like that leaves the door open to harassment, to stalking, whatever. Like that's more than just my neighbor, right? Like
right. Yeah, so I just respectfully disagree with that. But now that we know what the decision is, you're counseling your niece or a friend or something that's brand new to a dating relationship. What kind of advice do you give?
Put it in writing. We are in an exclusive dating relationship. No, I mean, that's hard because we all thought this was a relationship. I think of note, what they really harped on was after each sexual encounter, they did not spend time together. They wrote that for each encounter. So does that mean I have to watch a movie with you after we engage and for that to be a relationship?
You gotta have your timer up. Okay, the Court of Appeals said we should
30 minutes, that's good.
Well, so I think that's why this is such a hard situation to legislate around. I do think that the point of the law was to broaden it. I think they should have made it clearer.
Like the code?
The code, yeah. I mean, that seems to clearly be the intent behind it. I don't think it was written clearly enough, and maybe they should go back and broaden it to protect, all these people. Because I do agree, once you start having these intimate relationships, I think you invite in more conflicts potentially.
So what's the difference? We already talked about, that this court has found this isn't a domestic violence incident. It would be civil harassment. Mm-hmm. So we know that under the same set of facts, if proven, she could go and get a civil harassment restraining order, right?
I also think that this is one thing I forgot to mention. She did try to get him criminally prosecuted, and they dropped all the charges.
I wanted to talk to you about that a little bit. I'll talk to you a little bit about that. So let's assume that there's sexual encounters involved, that type of behavior where they hit each other and stuff like that. She gets hit a little too hard, should it be a crime?
I mean, we've seen this in real life, right? Yeah. With the ex-Dodger pitcher. What happened in that case? They engaged in supposedly consensual, violent, acts, sexual acts. He hits her a little too hard, and then she goes straight to, getting him criminally prosecuted.
Well, I mean, you can take away your consent to any sort of violence at any time. So I think it opens it up to making it a harder case to prove. But if we're just kind of talking about it sort of, morally, yes, I think even if you've agreed to a violent sexual relationship, if you decide you don't want to do that anymore, or he or she went hard,
right?
You better tell him. You better run away or something like that.
This actually also raises the Armie Hammer case, right, where he would brand his girlfriends and cut them and do things like that, and God. They ended up going after him, but he was not charged with that. He was not anything.
I mean, it's interesting how people are pushing the boundaries of the law, here and stuff. And I just would take I would take a different approach if I were on the bench here or the Court of Appeal. I think that in this case, you're not supposed to be mincing words when you talk about what a relationship is under the DVPA, is my opinion. And I have a feeling that this decision might be looked at, by other courts of appeal, or maybe, I don't know if it's ever going to be brought up to the Supremes, but it definitely will also be looked at the people that like to go to Sacramento and change. So maybe at our next law review, we're going to hear kind of one more amendment to the DVPA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ever changing. I mean, it's very fact specific, case specific, right? You can't.
Which I think we should also be clear here. They said in this case it wasn't a dating relationship, but that doesn't mean other friends with benefit relationships don't meet that burden. And they actually go there's so much case law on friends with benefits meeting the standard. I was shocked by this. There were at least 3 cases.
Yeah, they actually write, we therefore do not hold that a friends with benefits relationship is necessarily a dating relationship, or that it can never be one. So they're not.
It's so fact specific. They're
totally
saying.
Okay, so for those of you out there, if you have a relationship with friends with benefits, you're not definitely precluded from getting a restraining order. You just better say the magic words or do something, or go to a
Lakers
movie.
game.
Well, actually, it was interesting. they were talking, one of the cases they talked about,
Go to dinner once.
the parties were really clear in their communications that we're not dating. But the court found, or one of the parties was, I guess, but the court found that they were. And so it's not really even whether or not you think you're dating or you think you're not dating. It's whether a reasonable person looking at your relationship thinks you're dating.
You know, it's the subjective intent of the
Right.
parties too. You know, you started this podcast by talking about, I don't know how we got on the topic, but about the open relationships and what people think they're in, what kind of
Right.
relationship
Right.
they think they're in. And we're seeing a lot of people come in and say, we have an open marriage. And inevitably, the marriage breaks down because one of the parties is paying too much attention to some outside person, and then there's jealousy and things of that nature, you know. And, you know, I always think about, like, okay, what's in these people's minds? Because we have to determine what the date of separation is and stuff like that. You know, in this thing, you know, friends with benefits, you know, you wonder if that was truly what she was really thinking this was about. Maybe she was calling it that to be hip or to kind of keep him in tow.
I
or something.
completely agree. I can
You know?
totally see someone trying to play cool.
Yeah,
Be like, oh, he's not my boyfriend. We're just friends. I'm cool with this.
But I think she liked him. She said she prioritized him.
She said she prioritized, but then also went with 11 months without seeing him because she was busy with school. It is funny. It was an interesting relationship, to say the least.
Well, I think that...
Not
Not
relationship.
Not relationship.
Okay, well, that's good enough, I think. So thank you, ladies, very much for your legal analysis, and thank you for joining us on Exhibit A.